Hey everybody, welcome back to Ms. Barbudo's Awkward Economics videos. Back by popular demand, we'll be reviewing theory of the firm and all of those curves that you know you love. So, we're going to start with episode 1 with cost curves and the law of diminishing marginal returns. Remember, this is our new opportunity cost for this unit. When in doubt, you can use it in the answer. Okay, so let's first review what are the cost curves you need to know, and then we'll explain the shape of them. So starting off with this diagram, we'll start with the bottom curve first. AFC stands for average fixed costs, right? And we can see that this is declining sharply at first and then kind of flattening out. Average fixed costs would be the fixed cost divided by the quantity produced. And fixed costs are kinds of costs that the firm has to pay no matter what. So if we go back to our school cafe example, right, they have to pay the rent for that cafe. It doesn't matter the output, right? So it makes sense that at the first few quantities here, let's say the first few cups of coffee, the rent they pay or the cost they pay per coffee cup is quite high, right? And then as they produce more and more, this should decrease. Then we have between the average fixed costs and total costs are the AVC, or average variable costs. Variable costs are the kind of costs that change with production, right? So variable costs might be, right, in the short run we can change everything except for one fixed factor, right? So this would be the fixed factor in the short run. And these are all of my variable factors. So this could be labor, this could be coffee beans that the coffee house needs, or the stuff they put in those smoothies, right? So same thing here, right? We're going to see this general trend of a first downward sloping and an upward sloping curve. And then the distance between ABC and ATC should equal to FC, right? Because we see here that average total costs equal average fixed costs plus average variable costs, right? And we know that fixed costs don't change, right? They're the static factor for the short run, and variable costs is the factor that changes. When you review the maths portion too, like those charts, you can remember those quantities. Okay, so then why are these curves shaped the way they are? And we're going to introduce our third curve, the marginal cost curve. So this is called the law of diminishing marginal returns. We can see this law in production, like we did for our Mickey Mouse factory, right? Or we can also see it in costs. So we'll look at the cost curves here. Okay? So the reason these curves are at first downward sloping, right, is because of increased productivity of that variable factor. So let's say looking at our marginal cost curve, this big black one here. Sorry, my Google drawing is not so good. At first, right, the cost for the next, let's say the coffee shop makes 1 cup of coffee, right? At first, their costs are pretty high for that 1 cup of coffee. As they produce more cups of coffee, their cost for the next cup they produce goes down, right? As we also see here on the average variable and average total costs, right? Because they become more efficient, right? Then here, this is the point that we need to know as the point of diminishing marginal returns. And this is where we see the law of diminishing marginal returns. Okay, so this is the point at which, as we add more and more variable output or variable input, right? Like let's say we keep adding labor. Think about our Mickey Mouse experiment, right? Where we keep adding a worker, right? At first, you're more productive and cost per unit decrease. And then at some point, right, when you keep adding variable input, but you still are stuck with a fixed input like capital, right, is fixed, so you can't increase the size of the coffee shop, you can't buy more machinery, then you actually start to become less productive, and your marginal cost, the cost it takes you to make the next cup, is going to increase because you're less efficient. Right? So then we're going to see here, which is the upward sloping portion of the marginal cost curve. So at this point right here, we should know this, because MC is the sucker punch of curves, right? We know it should always hit ABC and ATC at its lowest point, and this will help us later. We'll explain that in the shutdown price videos.